On a stormy night, a billionaire's door reveals his daughter begging. An incredible life-changing moment awaits. Lightning flashed, illuminating the towering walls of Jack Malone's mansion in Silver Pines. Rain battered against the grand entrance, creating a relentless soundtrack to Emma's rising panic. She swallowed hard, nerves twisting in her stomach. Should she really be here, knocking on the door of the father who had looked down on her choices for years? The thunder cracked overhead, shaking her resolve. With trembling hands, she raised her fist and knocked. Somewhere inside, Jack was bundled up in opulence, blissfully unaware or perhaps willfully ignorant of the world beyond his four walls. For Emma, that world had always been one of sacrifice and service, a choice that had become her burden. Losing her job at the non-profit that served veterans had drained her spirit, infecting her with a deep disillusionment. How had it come to this? The door creaked open, revealing a silhouette framed by the flickering golden light of the lavish interior. Jack's expression was a mix of surprise and annoyance, his eyes narrowing the moment he recognized her. "Emma?" he asked, his voice a forced mixture of concern and disbelief. "Dad, I need help," she stammered, her eyes pleading. The storm outside raged on, mirroring the tempest within her. He hesitated, the tension hanging thick in the air. Memories rushed back, memories of fishing trips, laughter, and bonding moments that had faded into shadow. Those were eclipsed by years of silence, resentment, and his fierce ambition that had always come first. "Why now?" Jack finally said, his voice a low rumble like the thunderclaps above. "Why this?" "Because I don't have anywhere else to go." Emma's heart raced. She was scared, and it broke her to stand at his door, vulnerable and wet from the pouring rain. As the downpour intensified, she felt something shift. A flicker of something caught Jack's eye, doubt. It was fleeting, masked by layers of pride. The crack of lightning drew her gaze outside, and for a brief moment, the world felt starkly illuminated. She could see the Veterans Center, a place full of the men and women she fought for, through the flashes out of the corner of her eye. Suddenly, sirens blared. Smoke curled up against the stormy sky. Emma's heart sank as panic gripped her. "The center. It's on fire!" she shouted. Jack's expression morphed from skepticism to alarm. While instinct nudged him towards self-preservation, she could see his conflict. This was a moment, a critical turning point, forcing him to confront the chasm between his isolated life of luxury and the community he abandoned. "Emma, wait!" But she was already moving, stepping into the chaos surging outside, emboldened by the urgency of the situation. "Stop!" she shouted, the cold air wrapping around her. "We need to help them." Before he could finish, she turned back to him, emotions swirling like the storm around them. "These people need you. You once said family was important. Community is too." He faltered, staring at her as if seeing her for the first time, his little girl, all grown up. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Jack exhaled sharply, reality settling in. "Okay, let us go." He stepped out into the storm beside her, the rain pelting down as they sprinted towards the frantic scene. In that moment, something flickered between them, a connection, a chance at rebuilding. As they ran, the thunder rolled in the background, but their hearts beat in unison, driven by purpose. Would they find a way out of this storm, or would the flames ruin everything? The clock ticked down to chaos, and salvation felt achingly close yet perilously out of reach. Would Emma spark the change they both desperately needed, or would the storm keep them separated forever? The streets of Silver Pines transformed into a river, the storm washing away the calm facade of the wealthy neighborhood. Jack and Emma sprinted toward the flickering orange glow that illuminated the night sky. Sirens wailed around them, and the chaos intensified with every step. When they reached the veteran center, what was once a sanctuary was now engulfed in flames. Firefighters battled the inferno, their figures barely visible through smoke and sparks flying into the air. Emma's heart sank. These were the people she fought for, the ones who turned to her for support. "Stay back," a firefighter shouted, waving them away as they tried to push forward. But Emma couldn't just stand there. She spotted a familiar face, old Mr. Harrison, who had often shared stories with her. He was pacing nervously at the perimeter, eyes darting back and forth. "Mr. Harrison." She called out, rushing to him. "Emma." He croaked, desperation in his voice. "I was inside when it started. I think there are still people trapped." Jack stood nearby, jaw clenched, battling his instinct to retreat. This was not a boardroom negotiation, this was real, raw chaos. Emma turned to him, urgency in her voice. "Help me, Dad. We need to help them. You have the resources. Think about what we can do together." The helplessness Jack felt was palpable, but then something shifted. Maybe it was Emma's fiery determination, or perhaps it was the memory of his own father, a war veteran, who taught him to protect others. He steeled himself and nodded, heart racing as he took the lead. "All right, what do we do? Let us get supplies from the truck. We can help the firefighters." Emma jumped into action, guiding Jack back to his SUV. They threw open the trunk, where a few moments earlier lay luxury goods now replaced with what felt like lifelines: water, blankets, and first aid kits. As they moved briskly, Jack's hands grew warmer, softened by the rush of adrenaline and purpose. They returned to the chaos, hands trembling but minds clear. Together, they distributed water and supplies to the emergency responders, doing their best to assist as frantic families gathered, uncertainty written all over their faces. Jack found himself engaging, answering questions, tapping into a strength he thought he had lost. "Thank you," a woman exclaimed, receiving a bottle of water. "You have no idea how much this helps." Emma's heart swelled as she saw her father interact, a side of him she had scarcely witnessed. She sensed a change in him, a flicker of realization illuminating his once indifferent demeanor. They were fighting for the same causes now: community, compassion, and hope. Just when the fire seemed to be under control, a shout rose above the chaos. "We can't find one of the volunteers." "She is still inside." Emma's breath hitched. "We have to go back in," she said, eyes wide with determination. "We can't leave anyone behind." Jack grimaced. Into the flames? It felt impossible, yet her unwavering gaze pulled him along. Just then, something dawned on him. He could save lives. He couldn't let fear win. "All right," he shouted over the roar of the flames. "But we stick together." At that moment, he realized this was more than just about helping people, it was about healing family ties, weaving back together years of loss into a fabric of purpose. Emma looked at him, hope flashing in her eyes. As they prepared to dive into the thick smoke, their hands found each other, a symbolic pledge made against the raging storm. Each step felt like a leap into their own heartfelt transformation. Would they emerge as saviors, or would this plunge into danger break them apart once again? The heat was suffocating as Emma and Jack plunged into the swirling darkness. Smoke billowed around them, creating an almost tangible barrier between safety and the heart of the blaze. Each breath felt like a battle. The acrid scent of burning wood clawed at their throats, but they pushed forward. Every instinct screamed at them to pull back, to retreat, yet the idea of leaving anyone behind spurred them on. "Stay close," Jack shouted, forcing his voice to carry through the chaos. Emma nodded, her heart thumping in her chest. She could feel fear wrapping around her like a vice, squeezing tighter with every step. But she pushed it down, focusing instead on finding the lost volunteer. The flames danced hungrily around them, flickers of orange illuminating their determined faces. "Over here!" Emma shouted, suddenly hearing a faint voice calling for help. It was muffled but unmistakable. She moved toward the sound, her heart racing with a mix of hope and dread. Jack followed closely, his eyes scanning the darkened corners of the room. "We need to get out of here fast," he warned, his urgency palpable. But as they moved closer to the cries for help, the strain of the heat intensified. Emma spotted something, a figure crumpled near a wall, covered in debris. "There!" She rushed forward, kneeling beside the woman who looked disoriented and terrified. The woman's eyes widened as she recognized Emma. "Thank God you found me!" she cried, voice trembling. It was Sarah, a dedicated volunteer who had aided veterans for years. "I thought I'd never make it out." "We're here now, and we're getting you out," Emma promised, her voice firm despite her fear. Jack quickly assessed the situation. "We need to move her now. The fire is spreading." He glanced back at the entryway they had come through. It was already mostly engulfed in flames. They were running out of time. With adrenaline pumping through them, they carefully lifted Sarah, cradling her weight as they started back through the smoke-laden hall. Emma could barely see, but she focused on Jack's silhouette ahead, guiding them with confidence. Suddenly, the building cracked, a sound that echoed like gunfire through the roar of the flames. "Hurry!" Jack yelled, his face set in a grim determination. They stumbled forward, the heat pressing down on them as if the very air was aflame. "Emma!" Jack's voice cut through her panic as she stumbled on rubble, her knee hitting the hard floor. Pain shot through her, but before she could process it, Jack was there, pulling her up. "I've got you," he said, his eyes boring into hers with fierce intensity. "Just a little further." With renewed strength, they pressed on. The light of the outside drew closer, and hope flickered in Emma's chest. But as they reached the exit, a sudden rush of wind swept through the doorway, pushing back against them. Jack pushed Sarah ahead, urging her out. "Go. Get to safety," he commanded Emma, but she hesitated. "You're coming with us." "No time. I'll follow right behind you." Emma's heart sank, the thought of separating nearly unbearable. But the urgency of the moment forced her to act. She helped Sarah to her feet, propelling her into the fresh air outside. As soon as they stepped out into the night, they collapsed onto the wet ground, gasping for the cool air. "Jack!" Emma yelled back into the smoke. "Come on, we need you." For a heartbeat, everything felt suspended. The world tightened in her chest as she watched the entrance. Would he return? But then she saw him, emerging from the smoke, eyes fierce and determined. He charged toward them, and she felt the weight of relief wash over her. Together they had saved Sarah, but what about the others? The enormity of what they had faced weighed on them as they caught their breath. In that moment, surrounded by chaos, Emma turned to Jack, realizing the depth of their journey together. "We did it," she breathed, a smile breaking through the darkness. But just as they began to celebrate their shared triumph, a sharp sound pierced the night. The building shifted ominously, an unseen force threatening their fragile victory. "What now?" Jack whispered, dread creeping into his voice. Emma's eyes widened as new smoke billowed from the center. "This wasn't over. Watch out!" she screamed, bracing for the worst. Would they have to turn back once more into the fire? The ground shook beneath them, a low rumble that seemed to resonate from deep inside the burning structure. Emma felt her heart stop for a moment, the comforting knowledge of fresh air suddenly overshadowed by the terrifying possibility that the fire was more vicious than they had anticipated. "Jack, we can't just stand here." Emma's voice trembled with urgency. The smell of smoke intensified, curling around them like a vengeful spirit. They needed to move fast. Jack looked over his shoulder, eyes darting nervously. "We can't leave anyone else behind," he replied, determination boiling within him. The desperation in his voice struck a chord in Emma's heart. They had made it this far, they couldn't stop now. Then we'll find another way in. We can't let this fire win. Emma raised her chin defiantly, the confidence they had forged in the flames pushing her forward. If they had come this far already, they could muster the courage for just a little more. Stay close, Jack warned again as they turned back towards the entrance, ready to brave the darkness once more. They stepped through the charred doorway. The heat surged like a living creature, wrapping around them. Ahead, the flickering light of the inferno painted grotesque shadows against the walls. Can you hear that? Emma said suddenly, straining to catch the sound. It was faint but unmistakable, another call for help. It was a rhythmic tapping, a cry buried beneath the roar of the flames. Yeah, I hear it. Jack's voice crackled with urgency. This way. They followed the sound, moving past walls that were beginning to bow and crumble. Each moment felt like an eternity as the heat surrounded them, a merciless reminder of how quickly they could lose everything. As they rounded a corner, they spotted a door half melted and barely standing. In here. Emma pointed, pushing the door open with a desperate shove. Inside, the air was stifling. They were met with a sight that twisted her stomach, a man trapped under a beam, struggling to move, his face contorted in pain. Help me, please. He gasped, eyes frantic. Jack immediately knelt, assessing the situation. We need to lift this off him, he huffed, muscles tensing as he positioned himself beneath the heavy beam. I'll help. Emma joined Jack, placing her hands on the cold, blackened wood. Together, they strained against it, adrenaline rushing through their veins. On 3. Jack counted, and they pushed with every ounce of strength. 1, 2, 3. With a grunt, they managed to shift the beam just enough for the man to crawl free. He gasped for breath, racked with coughs as he looked up at them with tears of gratitude pooling in his eyes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Keep moving. Jack urged him, waving him out the door. But as they started to follow, the building gave a dreadful lurch once more. The walls groaned, and a sudden crash rang out, sending debris crashing to the floor. Emma! Grab him! Jack shouted as he shoved her back through the doorway, but the man hesitated. Come on! Emma urged, her voice laced with panic. Fire crackled around them, flames licking closer. The moment felt surreal, the smoke swirling, the cries echoing, the sweat trickling down their faces. And then, with eyes wide with fear, the man turned and ran, leaving Emma and Jack to face the oncoming chaos alone. Why didn't he stay? Emma yelled, anxiety rising within her. Focus. Jack grabbed her hand, steering her toward the exit as the air thickened with ash. We have to go. Now. With a final glance back at the darkness that threatened to consume them, Emma propelled herself forward, Jack pulling her along. They burst out into the open air just as the building behind them roared with fury, collapsing in a mass of flames and smoke. They fell to the ground again, lungs gasping for fresh air, the thrill of survival pulsing through their veins. But as the shouts of emergency responders began to echo in the distance, Emma realized something across the crowd. Another figure was missing. Wait, where's Sarah? Panic burst into her voice, the question ringing in the stillness. They had only just breathed relief, but the weight of uncertainty now pressed heavily on them. Would they have to go back again? Jack looked toward the building, the flames reflecting in his eyes. We can't leave her behind. But as they prepared to re-enter that hell, another sound pierced the night, the shrill wail of sirens approaching. Would they find Sarah before help arrived, or was time slipping away from them once again? Emma's heart thundered in her chest, drowning out the distant sirens. She could barely think with panic washing over her. We need to go back, Jack. We have to find Sarah. Jack's expression was torn, caught between the urgency of their situation and the shocking reality of their inability to save everyone. I don't know if it's safe, he murmured, casting a glance back at the raging fire, now a living monster hungrily devouring the remains of the building. We can't just leave her. Emma's voice cracked with distress. She looked around at the chaos, the crowd gathering, and their worried faces. Some were crying, others yelled into phones, calling for loved ones. But Sarah was out there, possibly trapped. "Emma, listen. We just got out. If we go back in now." Jack's voice trailed off, but the warning was clear. "We'll have to be quick," Emma insisted, her resolve hardening. "Every second counts. We can't fail her." Jack searched her eyes, where fear mingled with determination. Finally, with a deep breath, he nodded. "All right, but we do this together. No heroics, understood?" "Understood," Emma replied, adrenaline coursing through her veins. They moved back toward the entrance, the air thick with smoke curling like fingers attempting to pull them back. It wasn't just fire that awaited them, every creak of the building felt like a presence, something warning them to turn back. As they stepped inside again, a wave of chaos washed over them. The glimmer of flames danced eerily off the melted walls, and the smoke stung their eyes. "Sarah!" Emma called out, her voice barely rising above the noise. "Keep your voice down." Jack warned fiercely. "We might be able to hear her." They pressed deeper into the space, carefully maneuvering through the wreckage. Emma's heart ached for her friend. Had Sarah really been in there? "Over here." A muffled scream pierced through the suffocating darkness. It came again, frantic and desperate. "Help! Someone, please! Did you hear that?" Jack's brows furrowed with concern as they turned toward the sound. "Yes. This way." Emma pulled Jack as they hurried towards the voice, urgency coursing through them. Hope flickered momentarily, illuminating their path through despair. As they approached what once was an office, Emma squinted through the smoke and shadows. There, at the other end of the room, she saw a figure small, trembling, clinging to what appeared to be a fallen support beam. "Sarah!" Emma rushed forward, her legs pumping with renewed strength, fueled by fear and hope. She almost faltered as the beam shifted, sending a shower of ash tumbling down. "Hold on. We're coming. Emma." "Jack. I can't move." Sarah's voice quivered, a broken plea. "Just hold on, please." Jack called, urgency breaking in his tone. He and Emma reached the beam, trying to lift it, but its weight was too much even for their combined effort. "It's too heavy," Emma cried. "We need something to prop it up." The room felt like it was constricting around them, the fire's fury echoing a threat to their attempts. "Like what?" Jack shouted, panic swirling around his words. "Anything." Emma's mind raced. "We need a rock or a chair, something." "There." Jack pointed to a twisted piece of furniture against the wall. "If we can get that under there." Emma didn't wait for him to finish. She bolted toward it, heart pounding. She could hear Sarah sobbing, and the sound tore at her resolve. As she heaved the useless chair, it splintered beneath her hands. Time felt like it was slipping through her grasp. She needed to act, and fast. Just as she got it into position, the building groaned, announcing its weakness. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoed through the air. The ground quaked, and cracks spidered across the floor. "Emma!" Jack screamed, his voice drenched in panic. And in that moment, reality struck her with brutal force. Would she sacrifice everything to save Sarah? "Hold on, I'm coming." Emma shouted, wrenching the chair into place just as the beam jolted. Would it hold? Or would it all crash down? The fire continued to rage. Time was slipping away. Could they pull Sarah from the chaos before it consumed everything? Emma's breath came shallow now, her heart racing with fear. As she looked back toward the girl they had to save, she realized they were running out of time and choices. What would they risk to save one life when so many were at stake? The chair fell apart, splintering at the sides, barely making a dent in the chaos that surrounded them. Emma stood frozen for a moment, her heart pounding. She could see the fear in Sarah's eyes, the terror reflected back at her, but time was slipping like sand through their fingers. "Jack, think!" Emma shouted, her voice reaching a fever pitch. Every second felt like an eternity, shadows shifting ominously as the fire crackled like a sinister laughter all around. Jack's face tightened with determination as he scanned the remnants of the room, desperately seeking anything that could help. "We need to find something stronger, something sturdy." His voice had a sharp edge, frustration bubbling beneath the surface, but just then, the building let out another groan, deeper this time, like the last breath of an old man nearing the end. Emma glanced up, dread creeping into her bones. The beam over Sarah's head looked more precarious by the second. "Everything's falling apart." "Wait, what about the file cabinets?" Jack pointed to a line of charred metal drawers, listing to one side, half buried under debris. "We can use those to prop up the beam." "Right." Emma nodded, a pulse of adrenaline igniting her limbs. They rushed towards the cabinets, their bodies moving fast, but the heat threatened to cling to them, slowing their every step. Emma grabbed the nearest cabinet, her fingers slick with sweat and adrenaline. She strained against its weight, shoving with everything she had. Jack joined her, and together they heaved it forward, slowly maneuvering it toward the fallen beam. "Faster!" Sarah's voice broke through their focus, desperation lacing her words, igniting a fierce urgency in Emma's chest. "I'm trying." Emma gasped, the effort pulling at her muscles. They finally got the cabinet under the beam, and for a second, they thought they could hold it in place. But it wobbled ominously. "Jack, hold it!" Emma shouted urgently as she scrambled to steady it. Jack gritted his teeth, pushing his shoulder against the rough metal. "We need to get the other one," Jack said, eyes darting to another cabinet just a few feet away. Emma's heart sunk. This one was half buried, almost impossible to move. "We can't, I can do it." Jack interrupted fiercely, rushing to grab the second cabinet. He grunted and pushed with all his might, and sweat beaded on his brow. "Just be careful," Emma urged, glancing at Sarah, who was shifting in increasing panic. As Jack wrestled with the cabinet, Emma reached for Sarah again, her voice soothing despite the terror around them. "I'm right here, Sarah. We'll get you out." But even saying the words drained her energy. Suddenly, another loud crack rang out, echoing in the false silence. The floor beneath Emma trembled, and she stumbled slightly, her panic escalating. "Jack! Hurry! Almost there." Jack grunted, finally managing to slide the second cabinet into place beside the first one. "Now! Prop it against the beam." The girls screamed as Emma shoved the second cabinet up behind the beam, breath hitching as she wrestled with the weight. The cabinets buckled but held for a moment. There was a suffocating silence before the sound of fire intensified, engulfing the room with a ferocious roar. "Sarah!" Emma called, adrenaline coursing. "Can you move?" I can't," Sarah cried, tears streaming down her face. "It's too heavy." Jack's eyes darted to the door. "Emma, if she can't move, don't say it." Emma interjected, panic flooding her chest. "We're not leaving her." Jack's expression went grave. "We have to make a choice, Emma." "Stop. Just help me lift her." But Emma felt the cracks in her resolve, the weight of their situation pressing down on her. Would they risk it all to save a friend? Or should they spare themselves and flee before the flames took everything? "On 3. Jack rasped. 1, 2 they lifted, the weight didn't budge, and then another crack echoed. Time stood still as fear wrapped tightly around them like a vice. Emma's stomach churned. Would this be the moment that changed everything? "Grab her!" Jack shouted, his face strained with effort, but in that heartbeat, as the walls continued to groan, one thought came crashing through the noise: there was still a choice to be made. What would they sacrifice to save Sarah? What lay on the other side of this decision? Before they could act, the chaos erupted again, leaving them dangling on the edge of desperation. Their lives and Sarah's hung in the balance. The cabinets shuddered under the weight of the beam, their creaking metal a reminder that time was not on their side. Emma locked eyes with Sarah, raw fear replacing the hope that had flickered in her heart moments earlier. "Just hold on," she yelled, her voice bursting through the flames that licked the air around them. Jack's grip faltered for a brief moment as he panted heavily, beads of sweat running down his forehead. "We can't hold this forever," he gasped, glancing back at the door as if it were an escape route. But Emma shook her head, her determination unwavering. They needed to hold on a little longer. "Just a bit more, Sarah. We'll get you out, I promise." Emma's heart raced, the weight of uncertainty choking her words, desperately masking her own fear. "On 3. Jack shouted again, his resolve hardening as he counted down, 1, 2, 3. They lifted with a collective grunt, muscles straining against flesh and metal. A horrible crack filled the air, and the beam shifted. The cabinet swayed threateningly, and for a moment, Emma felt a cold flash of despair. Jack's face was tight with concentration, but even he looked terrified. Without warning, the floor let out a deep rumbling sound. A deep crack split the ground, sending both Emma and Jack into a flurry of desperate coordination. "We need to push harder," Emma yelled. As they strained, she noticed Sarah's face transform from fear to something more profound, something like acceptance. It struck Emma like a punch to the gut. There was no way they could let that be. "We're not losing anyone today," she yelled, the words vibrating as she locked her focus back on Sarah. Sarah struggled to speak. "Don't say it," Jack barked. "Not now." With every ounce of strength and sheer willpower, they pushed. Emma felt her legs tremble, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. Bits of the ceiling began to crack and dust fell, caught in a hellish mix of smoke and confusion. The world was falling apart, and all that mattered was saving Sarah. Then, suddenly, there was a shift. The cabinets gave way under the pressure, but Emma had no choice. She cried out, initiating one final heave. "Grab her!" she shouted, adrenaline surging through her body as she made one last lunge. Jack moved, slipping to the edge beside Sarah, their fingers mingling as they struggled against the weight pinning her down. In a split second, they both gripped her arms, lifting despite the agony of exertion. "I can't," Sarah cried, her face a mask of panic. "Just trust us." Jack grunted, his face twisted in effort. They pulled, and finally, Sarah broke free. But the cabinets began to topple, and the world around them exploded in a chaotic dance of splinters and flames. Emma turned, awareness sharpening in those frantic moments. "Run!" she yelled. They stumbled forward, the heat singeing their skin. They barely made it a few steps when the beam gave way, crashing down just behind them. Emma felt a rush of air as they barely escaped the catastrophe that encased the room in a fiery kiss. Out of breath, trembling, they reached the exit. Heart pounding, Emma turned just as Sarah fell to her knees, coughing and wide-eyed. I thought I was going to die." "Not today," Jack said swiftly, a hint of relief washing over him. "We made it." But Emma's heart sank. They had survived the flames, yet the price of their escape lingered heavier than soot in the air. "Is it over?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling as tears streamed down her soot-streaked cheeks, but Emma knew better. Outside was just the calm before the storm. "No," she whispered. "This is only the beginning." As they caught their breath, Emma felt the weight of a decision approaching. What awaited them in the world outside? And would their friendship be intact, or would they uncover secrets that threatened to tear them apart? They had escaped the flames, but now they faced an uncertainty far greater than the fire. The depths of their loyalty would soon be tested, and Emma braced for what came next. Just beyond the exit, they found an unexpected twist waiting for them, something neither of them could have ever prepared for. The chaos outside was a harsh contrast to the steady crackling of flames they had just escaped. Emma stepped into the cool air, her lungs desperate for relief after the suffocating smoke. She felt it fill her chest, but the moment was fleeting. An intense hum spanning the outside world thrummed in her ears. Just beyond the crumbling building, night had fallen, its deep darkness punctuated by the glow of distant streetlights. Shadows danced eerie patterns across the ground as Emma, Jack, and Sarah stumbled away from the wreckage, disoriented yet alive, a miracle and a burden all at once. "Is everyone okay?" Emma asked, her voice hoarse as she turned to assess her friends. Jack nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead, but his gaze darted elsewhere, searching. "Where are we?" Sarah's eyes widened as she took in their surroundings. Emma's pulse quickened. Unfamiliar storefronts surrounded them, remnants of a town that felt fractured and abandoned but somehow still alive. The air was pungent with the scent of smoke, panic simmering just beneath the surface. "Last I checked, we were in our neighborhood." "But, something feels off," Emma said, her heart twisting. The weight of unease crept back in, clawing at her resolve. It was like they had stepped through a portal into a parallel world, one where the remnants of their normal lives barely flickered in the distance. Suddenly, Jack shot a hand towards the horizon. "Look!" he yelled, pointing. Emma squinted. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman hurriedly walking towards them. As she drew closer, trepidation flickered around the edges of Emma's awareness. The woman was tall, her face partially hidden under a hood. "Help!" the woman cried, her voice echoing across the deserted street. "Please!" Emma's heart raced at the desperation twisted in the stranger's expression. The woman's eyes gleamed with urgency, a mixture of fear and hope swirling within them. "What happened?" Jack asked as the woman approached, his protective instincts kicking in. "Please, you have to help me," the woman pleaded, glancing back over her shoulder. Her breath came in quick gasps, and Emma felt the tension in her own muscles tighten in sync. "They're coming. I need to get away from here." Emma's instincts flared. This lady was in trouble, there was no doubt about that. "Who's coming?" she pressed, anxiety coiling in her stomach. "The men in the suits. They've taken everything from me. They'll take you too if you don't run." Sarah shuddered, stepping closer to Emma, while Jack glared at the woman. "We just escaped a fire. We can't just run with you." But Emma felt a familiar tangle of loyalty pull at her heartstrings. "We can't leave her. She needs us," Emma insisted, glancing toward the woman's distraught face. "Please. I know it seems crazy, but I promise we can trust each other. They're ruthless." The woman gasped, urgency sharpening her features as she scanned for threats. Emma's heart sank as she weighed the choice before her. Stay with safety in numbers, or extend a hand to a stranger in need, potentially inviting danger. "Emma, think," Jack warned, his voice tinged with concern. "We barely made it out alive. What if we really going to leave her?" Emma interrupted, the swell of empathy overcoming her fear. The air thickened as they all stood in silence, the weight of their decision hanging in the balance. A siren wailed in the distance, piercing the night like a dagger. Emma felt the chill seep into her bones. "Time is running out," the woman urged, fear etched across her face. "We have to go now." Emma took a deep breath, glancing at Jack and Sarah, then back to the woman. In that very moment, she knew she had to act. "All right. We'll help you," she said, the resolve firm in her voice. As they began to run, racing off into the dark unknown, Emma's thoughts swirled with dread and anticipation. What dangers lay ahead? What secrets would unravel as they ventured into a world far beyond the flames they had narrowly escaped? And in the dim light of that uncertain night, all Emma could hope for was that together, they would find their way through whatever lay ahead. The shadows swallowed them as they sprinted down the dimly lit street. Emma's heart pounded in her chest, each beat synchronized with the hurried footsteps of her friends. Sarah clutched Emma's arm tightly, her face pale, terror etched in her wide eyes. Where are we going? Sarah gasped, trying to catch her breath. I don't know. Just follow me. Emma shouted back, glancing over her shoulder at the woman. The stranger's frantic expression only fueled Emma's urgency. They needed to find shelter, somewhere safe to think. Do you have a place to go? Emma called out, the woman's hood obscuring her face enough to make Emma feel uneasy. Yes. Just a few blocks away. The woman replied, her voice tremulous but determined. As they ran, the distant wail of sirens grew louder, a menacing reminder of the chaos they were fleeing. Emma's eyes darted around, searching for any semblance of safety. The storefronts they passed darkened windows and closed doors felt like a labyrinth closing in on them. We can't keep this up. Jack huffed, falling a step behind. His face glistened with sweat and apprehension. What if they catch us? We won't let that happen, Emma said, though she felt the doubt creep in. The weight of their decision pressed heavily on her, but as she looked at the woman's pleading gaze, she steeled herself. No going back now. After a few more frantic blocks, the woman led them to an inconspicuous alleyway. This way, she said urgently, motioning for them to follow her into the darkness. Hesitantly, they stepped into the narrow space, shadows swallowing them whole. The woman's breathing slowed as they pressed against the cool brick wall, her eyes scanning the alleyway. It felt abandoned, but Emma sensed an underlying tension. Let us take a moment, Emma whispered. Jack and Sarah leaned against the wall, trying to catch their breath. Who are these men? Jack growled, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. What do they want with you? The woman hesitated, as if pondering how much to reveal. They're part of a group that wants to control everything, she finally replied, her voice low. I was working on something they didn't want me to find. Now my life is in danger. Control. What do you mean? Emma asked, confusion piercing through her fear. The woman took a deep breath, collecting herself. They've taken too much as it is. If they know I'm still alive. I don't know what'll happen. I can't let them find me. Emma felt the weight of the woman's words settle in her chest. They weren't just running from physical danger, they were running from a threat that echoed through the very fabric of their lives. A sudden noise echoed, a metallic clang that made all of them jump. Emma's heart raced as she looked toward the alley's entrance. Shadows loomed, and she thought she could see figures moving in the dark. Go. The woman urged. This way. With urgency, she darted to a side entrance hidden behind an old dumpster. Without hesitation, Emma grabbed Sarah's hand and pulled Jack along, following the woman into the dim light of the back room. Inside, they found themselves in a small storage space, filled with dusty boxes and paint cans. The musty scent of aged wood stung Emma's nostrils, but it was a welcome reprieve from the night outside. What now? Jack asked, anxiousness creeping into his voice as they caught their breath. We need a plan, Emma said, her mind racing. The stakes were higher than ever. They weren't just fleeing flames and uncertainty now, they were entering a tangled web of danger and deception. As she looked around, her gut twisted. They'd stumbled into something bigger than they realized. What awaited them? What choices lay ahead? The moment felt charged with electricity, the air thick with unspoken fears. Emma felt an unsettling foreboding wash over her. In their race to escape, had they just stepped further into a trap? Stay sharp, she whispered, the weight of the unknown heavy on her shoulders. Suddenly, a loud thump echoed from the door they had just entered. Emma froze, eyes widening. They're here. What would they do now? Only time would tell if they could face the approaching storm or if it would swallow them whole. The rattle of the door sent a chill through Emma's spine. She pressed back against the wall, heart racing, as the uncertainty of their situation tightened its grip. Jack and Sarah exchanged wide-eyed glances, breath held in anxious anticipation. The woman, now stripped of her facade of confidence, backed away, fear etching her features. Listen, Emma whispered, trying to steady the tremor in her voice. We need to be quiet. All we have to do is stay calm. The words felt fragile, thin against the dark tension closing in around them. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the outer door, making everyone jump. Did you hear that? Jack hissed. Emma's eyes locked on the door, every sense heightened. It felt like they were being hunted, and dread dripped down into her gut. Yes, it's them, the woman replied, panic spilling out. They'll search everywhere. A sense of urgency fueled Emma's resolve as she glanced around the cramped quarters. The dust-covered boxes offered little in the way of shelter, but perhaps they could find an escape route. Follow me, Emma declared, her voice steady now. We need to find another way out. She gestured for the others to follow her deeper into the room, away from the door. Are you crazy? They could be anywhere. Jack protested, urgency tinging his voice. We have to go. We can't just wait here. Emma shot back, and the fire of determination ignited in her once more. You heard her. They're dangerous. We need to find safety. With reluctant nods, they followed Emma as she directed them toward a narrow exit in the back. The air grew thick with an eerie silence, the kind that buzzed before a storm. The sound of footsteps grew closer, heels clacking loudly against the concrete. Quick! Emma urged, her heart pounding in time with the footsteps. They squeezed through the door, one by one, emerging into a dimly lit alley. The scent of rain mingled with smoke, an uneasy balance between chaos and calm. Once outside, Emma turned to the woman. Where to now? She asked, urgency in her voice. Just down this alley, we can find a hidden door, the woman replied, glancing nervously back toward the entrance. They hurried along the shadowy path, the weight of uncertainty pressing heavily on their shoulders. Each step felt charged, an electric anticipation coursing through the air. Do you think they saw us? Sarah whispered, her vulnerability rising to the surface. Not yet. Just keep moving. Emma said, her pulse racing. They reached the door, an inconspicuous entrance concealed behind some crates. With trembling hands, the woman pushed it open, the creak cutting through the silence. Inside lay a small space, dimly illuminated by a lone flickering fluorescent light. Quick! Get in! The woman urged as Jack followed first, then Sarah. Emma hesitated, feeling the adrenaline spike again. The night was alive with uncertainty, and they weren't safe yet. The heavy door shut behind them with a loud thud, trapping them in darkness. Emma's heart raced, she could almost hear the footsteps murmuring outside as the fearlessness swelled within her. They were safe, for now, but could they trust their new ally? What is this place? Jack's question broke the stillness, bouncing off the peeling walls. A safe house. For people like me, the woman said, a hint of relief creeping into her voice as she took a deep breath. This group, they control everything. But there's a way to fight back. We just need to plan. Emma raised an eyebrow, skepticism rising within her. What do you mean, people like you? I mean those who have crossed them. They're ruthless. If they find you, they won't stop until they've taken everything from you. But together her voice trailed off, thoughts swirling like the shadows around them. Together? Jack echoed, brow furrowed. What are we supposed to do? The woman pressed her lips together, contemplating her words. We can expose their wrongdoings. Show everyone how they operate. If we gather enough evidence. Emma felt a flicker of persistence. Expose them? But how? We're just trying to stay alive. That's exactly how we start, the woman urged, steel in her tone. We need to reach out to those who can help us, media, allies, anyone willing to fight. The air thickened with possibilities. What if they could turn the tide? What if they banded together to conquer the uncertainty gripping their lives? All right, Emma said steadily, heart pulsating with hope. We're in. But we need a solid plan and to work quickly. What's our first step? Sarah asked, courage bubbling beneath the fear. First, we need to gather intelligence on their operations, then find allies, the woman said, confidence lining her voice. With a shared look of resolve, Emma turned to Jack and Sarah, unity binding them. We've been through the flames. We can face this. Together. And in that moment, they transformed from mere survivors into warriors for truth. The fire had ignited a spark, and Emma felt it blaze brightly within her. This was their chance to fight back, to bring others into the light. As they focused on their next steps, outside, the night loomed heavy with uncertainty. But within that cramped room, they felt the warmth of hope begin to blaze anew. Whatever storm lay ahead, they were ready to face it, side by side. You need to subscribe now to follow their journey and not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support the channel. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. Did they make the right choice? And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share.